Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Colton, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about On the Sunny Side of the Street by Willem Verbeeck. So I have with me here On the Sunny Side of the Street by Willem Verbeeck, and we will be talking about this book. This is part of a photo book series that we started with our previous book review, which was DPRK North Korea in Color. You can see a link for that in the description below if you want to check out that video. And of course, if you want to see if you can get a copy of Willem Verbeeck's book On the Sunny Side of the Street, or just generally check out his work, you can do so also in the description. I'll have a link for his website and YouTube channel. So I'll start out this video by acknowledging that talking about camera gear is important. Talking about different camera shooting techniques and theories are also important, but equally important is the idea of talking about work as an end result. What are we printing, or how are we taking this work that we're spending so much time on and putting it into a physical medium where we can enjoy it and share it beyond just social media. Social media is important in our ever-connected world, but it shouldn't be the only way that you share your work if possible. So printing out work and framing it, creating a collage, putting together a book, or doing other things with your work that are even maybe more creative or obscure can really be beneficial, help you grow as an artist, but also enrich the lives of others who view that work. So similar to that, that is why we are doing this series talking about different photo books that I have. And it also allows me a chance to rediscover these books again. So the way this video will work is that I will talk about the impressions of the book overall, a lot more so on the physical elements of the book, and then we'll move into talking about a few select photos. I am going to limit myself to just talking about 3 photos in this book, so that the video is not too long, but also so that I don't spoil too much of the book in case you are wanting to pick up a copy yourself. So we'll begin with talking about some impressions of the book. Immediately when you pick up this book, you can feel there's a texture to it. There is kind of like a fabric feeling to it. I almost describe it as like the feeling of jeans, or maybe the feeling of like a corduroy jacket. I'm not sure those are quite exact, but there is definitely a fabric texture to the book. So as soon as you pick it up, you know this is something different. This is not just a book that was randomly printed out. There was thought that went into how the user would interact with this book. Also, something you will notice very immediately is on the back side of the book, there is what initially I thought was a Polaroid kind of like glued to the back, but it's actually just an image pressed into the fabric itself. So it is indented into the book, which I think will help make sure it doesn't peel off or anything like that. But it's a really good photograph. One thing I've been curious about is, did every single copy come with this specific photograph, or did various copies have different photographs pressed into the back? If you have one of these books, or if you know, let me know in the comments below. I've always been very interested to know. But regardless, very cool to have that on the back of the book. It definitely helps this book stand out even more than it already does. So as we open up the book, I won't really talk about the page thickness or the resolution of the pictures. All of that is phenomenal. It's a great thickness. The pictures are wonderful. What I want to highlight is how easy it is to view the pictures. So some books, it can be very hard to open up the pages and fully see the photo without missing anything or without any kind of distortion. A book that I think about that unfortunately had this problem was one of my friend's copies of the Hereditary photo book that was released by A24, that unfortunately the pages weren't, I don't know, maybe they didn't think about it enough, but some of the pages are a full spread, as I would call it, where it's one picture taking up 2 pages, and you can't get the book all the way open to fully see the picture. So what you get is a weirdly distorted image that can be kind of humorous, but also ultimately, if you've spent the money, is disappointing. And some photo books do suffer from that. It's kind of like the photographer or maybe the book creator didn't think about how these pages would work, and they printed it for like how you would just read a book, I guess. Luckily, with all of that said, I can say Willem's book opens perfectly. There is no struggle to get the pages open far enough. Everything's printed correctly, so you can see all of the images without having to struggle or without having to view it through some sort of distortion. And for the most part, the images are one image per page. There are some blank pages. There are a handful of kind of multi-page images, but they are done well, so that's something that you definitely won't have to worry about with this book. So in essence, it's high quality. All right, so let's talk about the 3 photos that I want to highlight. We'll start with the first one, which is early on in the book, and it is a photo that I knew was going to be in the book, and I was excited to have it because it is a really nice photo, and that is of what I imagine is a pizza parlor, but it's some restaurant in general, and there is a lone slice of pizza on a table in an empty restaurant, and that is very interesting. What initially pops for me is the color, that green kind of color that was, you know, sort of a 80s, 90s classic is really an eye popper for me. I love that color. And then I think what really helps out is what I would call the Oklahoma clay color, which is a reddish brown that you see on the table and the walls, and kind of fills in the rest of the color. So it has a really good complementary color in there, or contrasty color in there, and that pulls your eye in, and I think your eye stays because we also have a field of view that's really fun because we have this very large table, and then our eye is kind of pulled through. We have this line pulling us to the last table, which is much smaller and further away. Now, what I like best about this photo is that there's nobody in it, and that's really challenging to do as a photographer, to line up a shot that makes sense, but that also doesn't include people in it, especially if there are people in the restaurant. And so this shot excels and really gives you that vibe that not having people in the shot can create. Now, if you look closely enough, you will see that outside of the restaurant, towards kind of the background, there is what appears to be a person behind the windowsill or the window frame. And that is a little bit unfortunate as far as me being nitpicky, and like seeing that person there does kind of pull me out of the shot a little bit. But again, like I said, it is really challenging to remove people completely from a shot, and Willem did a great job of capturing the essence, and the shot is amazing. All right, with my critic's hat back off, let's go to the next shot in this book that I want to talk about, a little bit more towards the middle of the book, still early on-ish though, and that is a shot that I call the leopard print shot. Although I don't know enough about leopards and cheetahs and prints to know which type of cat it is, but it is a big cat. And anyway, it's a leopard or cheetah print couch and chair. And typically when you have that style of couch or chair, they're kind of tacky, and they're almost meant to be kind of tacky. But somehow in this shot, they feel like they fit the space. And not only that they fit the space, but they enhance the space, where if I was in that room, I want to sit on that couch. Like, it looks cool to sit on. Now, beyond the couch itself, which really isn't the main thing, to me the main thing is the light play that is going on, the heavy shadows and the highlights. And I think what really makes this shot work, in my opinion, is that there's a really strong dynamic range that we have here. We're not losing too much information in the shadows, but we're also not losing information and blowing out the highlights. It's very, not totally even, but it's evened enough to where you can appreciate all of those different ranges, because we have some very dark shadows, and then the outside is very bright. So I don't know if this was an HDR shot, or if this was shot on medium format film where we had a little bit more dynamic range, but nevertheless, it works well for this shot and it makes it very interesting and something that you want to look at and study longer. All right, and that brings me to the last shot that I want to talk about, which is the roller coaster shot towards the later half of the book. And part of what resonates in terms of this shot with me is that in July of last year, I went to Six Flags Over Texas in Dallas, and where I stayed, there is the Judge Roy Scream, I believe is the name of the roller coaster. And it has a very similar sort of setting as far as this really long roller coaster, and you can get a very interesting perspective standing on one side of the roller coaster and looking down. Now, Willem's shot is more interesting because his roller coaster has like an orange to it, which is a lot more interesting than the Judge Roy Scream's just white roller coaster painting. So much more interesting roller coaster itself. But what really works for this, not only the color, but the perspective, looking from one end of this roller coaster down to the other end as it twists and turns is really, really cool. So this is a shot that I really enjoy looking at over and over. So those are the shots that I want to highlight. Now these are also shots that Willem has mentioned or shown on his YouTube channel. So hopefully they're not too much of a spoiler for anyone who is interested in picking up a copy of this book. I don't know, as I mentioned, if Willem is still selling this book, but I do have his website in the description below if you want to take a stab at getting a copy. And I hope to continue this series. If you guys like this series, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have a photo book recommendation that you would like to see on this channel, let me know that as well. I'm always on the hunt for new photo books. And if you don't have a photo book yet, I would highly encourage that you sit down, think about some of the photographers and artists that you enjoy, and look to see if they have books available. It's a great way to absorb other creatives' work and energy, and to grow as an artist and to grow as a photographer, especially if you're interested in doing something like this in terms of printing your own book sometime down the road as well. And I gotta say, they make a great thing for guests to look at. I mean, that's just the truth. So anyway, if you enjoy this video, hit the like button. If you subscribe, it means a whole lot and I appreciate it. I'll hope to continue to create some more content like this. But for now, I'm Colton. I'll see you in the next one.